All right, y'all. We back. Takeaways with Tay. Happy Sunday. It's Taylor Nixon. No, aka Tay, aka the best, aka the greatest, Tay the greatest. We don't really put all that behind it, but just gotta hype yourself up. We're back. Takeaways with Tay on this beautiful Sunday. And I hope everyone is doing well. I hope life is treating you well. I've been asking a lot of people recently this week, how's life been treating them? And they just like, everybody's like, man, life has been crazy. Life has been unfair. Life has been hard. Life has been stressful. I'm just like, dang, like, is this what happened? Is this what comes with getting older? Becoming an adult? Like, what is this? Everybody's just going through it at the same time. So, but shout out to all of the people who have friends and communities that, or I should say, shout out to the communities of friends and people that are supporting one another during the times that they are enduring, and continue to push through whatever it is that you're enduring, because you're not alone and the world is enduring at the same time as you. But this week has been pretty interesting. I typically come on here and I share takeaways from books that I've read. So let me preface this with Takeaways with Tay was formed by myself, Tay, to share takeaways from key books that I've read, so that people who maybe might not be avid readers or just don't have the time to read could still benefit from the wisdom and knowledge that books provide without necessarily having to read them. But this week, I was kind of doing some thinking, like as I was thinking about what book I should touch on today. And I was like, you know what? I don't really want to share a book this week. I kind of want to do something different. And I want to share some takeaways from my week, because I had a very interesting week. And typically I'm a closed book. I don't typically share, my life and personal stories of what's going on, because for a lot of different reasons, like personal protection. Some things I might just not be ready to talk about at the time and still processing it. But some things I am, a full open book, ready to talk about it, share it. And so one of those particular things just happens to be something that happened this past week. So I decided to share that personal experience, or I'm going to share that personal experience today, and give hopefully some insights and some takeaways that I gathered just from this week that could be beneficial for someone who might be experiencing something similar. So there's no book this week. No book. I'm gonna preface this too by just, letting you know, kind of diving into my world here. So I want to say that about 2 months ago, I started on this business endeavor, and it was with someone else, like a second party, and we were super eager to build, all the great ingredients that you would put into, I guess you could call it, a situation where two people are coming together for the sake of one goal, right? If at the beginning things were seemed like they were going well and everything was on the up and up, and this made me think about, well, fast forward, right? The past 2 months, all the things that we've been working on the past 2 months for this particular project came to a head this week. And, as I reflected on why that was and what happened to bring it to this point, because it was a very, this particular week was a turbulent week as far as just everything kind of just coming together and bumping heads and clashing all at once, right? And so just pausing for a second, it made me think about the importance of beginnings and how important beginnings are to just anything, whether it be relationships, whether it be a business endeavor, whether it be a home buying situation. Anything that you can really think about, and how beginnings are often the foundation. They tell the story of almost how the rest of the story will go, right? You can almost tell how something will end based upon how something started. And with beginnings, there's always you have to take into consideration, your headspace, what you were thinking during that beginning, and also what the other person was thinking, if it's a joint thing, if you're doing something with someone else. But taking into consideration, like where you were mentally, what you were thinking, what you were intending, what your intentions were, and things like that, so that you can understand how that beginning transpired into something either good or bad, right? So it made me think, right, with the situation. 2 months had passed. I'm putting in all this time, energy, effort, money, resources, etc. Both parties, both me and the person that I'm doing this with. And there was one key ingredient that we were missing when we first came together. So in the beginning, we were missing one key thing. And I didn't realize at the time how important that one thing was. But then, of course, this week, as everything came to a head and like just real intense, blah, 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 I was like, okay, I understand. I get it. Right? So the one thing was communication. And it's crazy because it seems so simple, right? It seems so just like, it's communication. What happened, right? But it's the simple things like communication that can make or break a situation. And especially if there's misunderstandings in the beginning, and if there's no clear path, no clear intentions, no clear anything. It's just like everybody's just going on a whim and hoping for the best, right? In a perfect world, we could just do something. We could just come together and we don't have to talk about something, and we can still get a desired outcome. But the reality is that we live in different realities. Everyone lives in different realities. What's going on in your life right now is different from what's going on in my life right now. And we have to communicate so that we can be on the same page and understand, if we want to, what the other person is dealing with, right? So it was communication. We failed to communicate effectively about, and come to agreement with the vision that we had, that we should have as we came together. Now, I'm just speaking for myself in this situation. I'm not speaking on behalf of the other person, because that doesn't really, I don't think, it's beneficial. Of course, there were other things that played a role in, everything coming to a head, but just reflecting on this particular piece, because I felt like it was, very beneficial to just share. But yeah, so communication and the importance of beginnings, and how in those beginnings, making sure that communication is established, that respect is established, that the expectations, the roles, what role is this person going to play? What role am I going to play? How are we going to make sure that we execute? Who's going to hold us accountable? All of that is important. And even if it's not even a business endeavor, it's important for like relationships just in general. And so yeah, I wanted to share that because I've talked a lot about, in these past episodes, where every Sunday that I'm sharing, takeaways from books that I've read, I've talked a lot about communication. I've talked about relationships. I've talked about business, money, finances, health. I've talked about mental health, history, like all these different topics. But sometimes, we can get caught up in the cycle, the scheme of things, right? And we overlook just the simple, okay, now let's actually apply what we're saying. Let's actually apply what we've been talking about and what we've been preaching, essentially, right? So yeah, it was communication, and some of the key takeaways that I got just from what I experienced this week. Like I said, it was a very emotionally, there's a range of emotions that I experienced this week. I'm just being honest, and good and bad, and but I needed to experience it because I needed to learn, and I needed the opportunity to learn what I didn't necessarily know, and I needed to see why it's so important. I needed to see what's at stake if I didn't do X, Y, and Z, if I didn't communicate, right? And I'm living it. I'm living the result of failing, essentially, right? So key takeaway, failing forward. It's okay. It's okay to fail. It's okay. What matters is learning from your failures, learning from your mistakes, taking accountability and understanding where you went wrong, what part you played, but also being gentle with yourself and understanding that, you're not perfect. The world is the world. Sometimes we fail just because we have good intentions and we have good hearts and other people don't. And when I say fail, I mean like we might get the shorter end of the stick, or we might be in a situation that's unfair, and we have to learn how to put our guard up, or not even put our guard up, but just learn how to defend ourselves in a world that really is not looking out for us, essentially. But failing forward is something that I've heard a lot of people speak on, and it's a testament to like, no matter whatever like you're going through, there's always something that you can learn from it. And as long as you're alive to be able to essentially get through it and allow it to build your story and like build your resilience, and whatever the next step is, like you just get closer and closer to getting it right. You're just going to get closer and closer to getting it right. And then eventually you'll get it right. And then on to the next thing. And then also, key takeaway, just communicating over communicate. You can never communicate enough. Like, say it, spell it, read it, write it, dream it, play it, like anything that you can do to communicate, like over communicate, and make sure that you and whoever are on the same page, because have it in writing, have like, just so that there's no ambiguity and there's a clear defined role and just how things should go, right? That's important. Also, it's important too, because like it's important to have boundaries. Like I learned that this week with my time, because like I said, I spent the past 2 months on something that essentially came to a head. And when I say head, I mean like basically the past 2 months, it's like it almost is like it doesn't matter. It didn't matter. Like it just, which is devastating, for me, because I'm just like, well, I spent all this time and energy and things on something that essentially doesn't even matter anymore, right? But just having boundaries about my time and what I'm willing to give and not give, right? What I'm willing to share versus what I'm not willing to share. And I think that's important just in life in general. And a lot of the books that I've, read, they speak on that, and just making sure that, you put yourself first, and, you don't allow people to have access to you that don't necessarily deserve access, but also you understand that there's an understanding that access is a privilege, and that they shouldn't take it for granted. It's a privilege to have access to you. It's a privilege to have access to your mind, the way you think. It's a privilege to have access to what you can bring to the table. Like, that's a privilege. And a lot of times people get it twisted. They get it twisted, and they take it for granted. They take access to people for granted. They take access to the way the experiences that people have gone through, the work that they've done. They take that for granted. And because of that, that's why I said it's important to have boundaries. It's important to know how much you're willing to give to someone and when to draw the line. And then just the last thing, like last takeaway, is just how important community is when you are experiencing, things that might be considered more turbulent times. Having a community of people that you can call, rely, and just vent to is super important, because I don't believe that I could have made it through this week without certain people, certain friends, certain people that were there, that were listening ears, that were like, in my corner and reassuring me that I wasn't crazy. Like, there's just so many things that, sometimes you can get into situations and you want to give people the benefit of the doubt, but you also want to make sure that you're not being taken advantage of or things like that. So just having a community of people that know you, that know your heart, that know your intentions, so that they can always remind you of, like, if there's a situation where you might be being gaslighted. Not saying that was the case here, but just hypothetically speaking, like, if there's a situation where you could possibly be manipulated or gaslighted, you have a community of people that are like, girl, I know you, or guy, I know you. Like, no, you wouldn't do something like that. Like, this person don't know you. They just trying to say this because they're trying to get over it. They trying to do X, Y, and Z. Like, but that community is important because it takes reminders sometimes, especially like when you're emotional about something, when you're feeling a very strong way about something. You need people to remind you, bring you back to ground, bring you back to center, remind you who you are, remind you how valuable you are, remind you how special you are, how unique you are, and just remind you that this is not the end. Like, I think that's the biggest thing, is like, no matter how devastating something may feel or something may seem, like, this isn't the end. There's going to be other opportunities. There's going to be other doors that open. There's going to be bigger, better, whatever you want to call it. There's going to be other things that you're going to be able to build upon. So just don't get discouraged, and, don't feel down for too long. And it's not to say, like, like, don't feel what you're feeling or don't take time for yourself and things like that, but just needing people to keep your head in a space of not a victim. That's really what it is. Because I'm not going to lie, this past week, I wanted to be a victim. I'm like, man, this is some crazy stuff. Like, and I think oftentimes when we do go through things, we want to be victims because it makes us feel better. It makes ourselves feel better about the situation and justified and things like that. And it's like, I'm like, being a victim in this situation is not beneficial for me. It's not beneficial for me to sit up here and be like, oh, this person did X, Y, Z, and I didn't deserve blah, blah, blah. Like, no, it's not beneficial, and it doesn't serve any purpose. Like, it has absolutely zero purpose besides just making me feel better. Like, or making whoever feel better just because they're a victim. But you need people to remind you that you're not a victim, and that you are going to overcome. You're going to be victorious. You're going to be, you're still you in a situation that you encountered. It does not define you. All those things are important, and those are all the reasons why I'm able to even be right here and just kind of speaking right now on the topic, is because I've had people in my corner that have supported me and have vouched for me and have reminded me, of these things, so that I could be the strong, resilient person that I am sitting right here right now, because it was a week. I'm not gonna lie, it was a week. Typically, I'm typically a closed book. I'm like, man, it's on my heart, and I just want to share it. So, but anyways, always consider yourself. always consider yourself in any role, any state, anything that you're in and involved in, because no one is going to look out for you the way that you're going to look out for you. And that's something that sometimes you have to learn, that by seeing people treat you a certain type of way, and then you're like, wow, like this is how you really feel about me. You don't care about me, essentially. But you always have to consider yourself first. And it's not selfish. Actually, it is selfish, but it's okay. It's okay, because if you don't consider you, how can you expect someone else to consider you? Or why should you expect someone else to consider you? Like, if someone else considers you before you consider you, that's a blessing. That's an angel, and you need to thank God, because that's not the case most of the time. Most of the time, people don't consider other people; they consider themselves. And so, in order to survive and to get through in this world, and to put your foot down and demand what you want, rightfully so, you have to consider yourself. You have to consider how the role that you play in something makes you feel or doesn't make you feel. You have to consider what you want out of something, what you don't want from something or someone. You have to consider how much time you're willing to spend, what you're willing to give, what you're not willing to give. Like, all those things you have to consider, and you have to really know yourself. You have to really be honest about those things, so that you can make sure that you're in your consideration for yourself, like you're making a good decision. So yeah, don't expect anyone to look out for you the way that you should look out for yourself. And then lastly, just take time to reset. And when things don't go the way you think that they should have, like, just kind of just throw your hands up and just let it be. Laissez-faire. Let it go, let it be. Let it do what it does. Flow with the river, flow with the current of life, not against it. If life has brought you to a halt or a stepping stone or whatever, a block, like, don't fight it. Just let it be. It is what it is. Like, right now, this is where you're at. This is not forever. This is temporary. That's the beauty of change, the beauty of, life. And, just know and understand that your mind, your mental state, laissez-faire. I thought I said laissez-faire. I didn't say laissez-faire. Okay. My bad. I guess I didn't say laissez-faire right. But yeah, your mental state is important. So wherever you are mentally is like, one of my, or I guess I could bring this to a verse that I know from the Bible, which I don't quote me because I don't know if I'm going to quote it right. But basically, like, protect your heart, guard your heart, because everything that you do flows from it. So in that, I always relate that to, like, heart and mind, kind of similar. They play a complementary role, And I feel like, you kind of have to protect your mind too, as much as you're protecting your heart, protect your mental state too, because a lot of the thoughts that you have come from it. And sometimes those thoughts can serve you and sometimes they don't. And of course, you want the thoughts that serve you. You don't want the thoughts that don't serve you, because then you'll fall into this rabbit hole and cycle of, thinking things that are not good for you. So yeah, protect your mental state at all times, at all costs. And that may mean just like kind of taking a step back and resetting and being okay with that, whatever that looks like, just being okay with that. So that's pretty much it for this week. That's my story. That's my spiel. That's my update. And, take what resonated, leave what didn't, share what did, like, comment, all the above. It's Tay. We're here, we're alive, we're living. Life is still beautiful, life is good through everything, and we are, we're here. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for listening, and tune back in next week. Takeaways with Tay. We'll be back Sundays, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Y'all have a great rest of your week, and remember all those takeaways that I just shared with y'all. Like I said, like, follow, share, comment, all that. And I'll see y'all next